Hello everybody, here we are once again with another video with the Ford Crown Victoria. It's been quite a long time since I've done a video with the Crown Vic actually. I just wanted to make a quick video called Why the Crown Vic. Always, you get a lot of questions about why you should purchase a Crown Victoria, and I'm going to put it to you this way. If you want a Crown Vic, go buy Crown Vic, because at the end of the day, there's really no truly justifying a purchase of a Crown Vic. And the reason why I say that is because it is an older style car, and technically everything newer, or most newer cars, are safer because they have side airbags and airbags up in the roof and whatnot. They have better side impact ratings, albeit the Crown Vic still has awesome front impact ratings, but really, if you want a Crown Vic, you just need to go and buy one. And the reason why I say that is because they are a different kind of car. They don't really drive like anything else on the road. They don't really look like anything else on the road, to say the least. They are what they are. They're an older style car, and they just look a lot different. They have the very flat design, kind of boxy design of the 80s and 90s. They are an extremely nice riding car. I will wager you will not find a better driving car than a Ford Crown Victoria, and probably not a more durable one that on the road. Most newer cars but probably aren't nearly as durable as what a Crown Vic is. And the reason why I say that is because so many new vehicles has so many sensors, and there is so much to go wrong with them at any given time. A Crown Vic is just that. It's simple, and it does what it does well, which is meant to get you from point A to point B. And a lot of people go and say to me, well, doesn't that cost you a lot on gas? Isn't it bad in the winter? The answer to both of those is no. The other day I just did a road trip, believe it or not. I got 29 miles per gallon, which is actually better than the Ford Police Interceptors that replaced this car. Yes, that's right, albeit a police Crown Vic, not going to get that kind of mileage, but 29 mile per gallon in a large V8 sedan, definitely highly respectable. Albeit on the average day, I'll average about 20 miles per gallon just driving around town. Even then, still for a large sedan, pretty respectable. In a Crown Vic police model, you can expect between 17 and 18 mile per gallon. So really, that's not that bad in the grand scheme of things, especially not with gas prices this low. And people talk about winter driving because I live in the eastern side of things, Nova Scotia, so obviously we get our pretty heavy share of winter here. Sorry if the camera's shaking, the mosquitoes are trying to bite the living shit out of me right now, but the car is actually pretty competent in the winter. Get yourself a set of General Tire Ultimax Arctics or Bridgestone Blizzaks and you'll be set up to go. This is a 273 open differential. The police models come with a 327, usually track lock gear in the back, so that way both wheels will spin instead of just one. So like I said, definitely not that bad the snow. Like I said, durability is good and all that, so you really don't have to worry about a whole lot. Mainly so far I've owned the car for a year and almost a half. I put on 20,000 kilometers, which would be about 13,000 miles. Someone can do the math for me. I don't feel like doing it right now. And nothing's really gone wrong with it. I've needed a new differential cover because of rust. I've needed new rear backing plates, which Ford wants to charge $250 each for. Luckily I found some off an old cop car for $100, so that is much better. So like I said, overall, neither of those are the car's fault. It's because of rust, and you are going to run into those issues if you live in the Northeast, or at least the Salt Belt in general. So keep that in mind. Those two issues have nothing to do with the car themselves. That came from rust. So I've driven 13,000 miles absolutely problem-free since I bought this car. And the only other thing I saw the previous owner actually had to replace part-wise on this car was automatic clutches in the transmission, which is pretty hefty. Luckily it was under warranty, and that probably has something to do with the fact that it was a rental car for the first 15,000 kilometers of its life. And when I say go buy Crown Vic if you want one, I really do mean buy one, and buy one soon, because they are getting harder and harder to find every single day. The bare minimum Crown Vic is 5.5 years old, so I want you to think about that for a second. They stopped making them in September of 2011, a long time ago now. I know 2011 may not sound that long ago to most of you, but that's quite a long time ago. And this car right here is a 2007, and it is starting to show some rust around the edges. So like I said, go out and buy one if you really do want one, and just enjoy it, because they're not going to be around that much longer, especially if you live in the Salt Belt. Most of them now are really starting to show their age. Even just ones coming out of retirement, you'll find rust on and whatnot. Even mine is starting to get a little rusty. I've touched it up a couple times in a few spots. Right in and around this area, you've got to really watch for. It's hard to tell with all the muck on it right now, but there was some rust. And even under the fenders a lot of the time, you got to check for some rust. I had this touched up right before winter, and that held a little bit. I know the driver's side hasn't held up as well, because that's where most of the salt gets kicked up. You can see a little bit of the rust coming back on the very fine edges right there. And the other place you really need to check for is also on the left rear fender right here, which you can see some of the rust is coming back. The undercarriage is so-so. It's about average for a 10-year-old car. Not the best, not the worst, but definitely still has a few years left in it. And that is ultimately the #1 killer up in the Northeast. I don't know if it'll show the undercarriage that well. Yeah, you can see some of the rust starting to form. Most of it is still general surface rust, so if you really wanted to, you could get under there and sand everything, but it's not worth it, because that would probably cost you thousands of dollars in sanding and paint work. So yeah, generally Crown Vic, you won't find a more reliable car, and you definitely won't find a more comfortable car. And like I said, if you're doing mostly highway driving, I'd highly suggest one, because it'll keep right up there with the V6 as far as gas mileage goes, no problem. If you're doing in-city driving, that's up to you, because that's when they start to struggle. Straight in-city driving, you'll see anywhere between 15 to 18 miles per gallon most of the time, depending on traffic. In wintertime, obviously, that goes down a bit more as well. So generally, a lot of people assume that you buy one of these because you want to look like a cop, and no, that's not actually it. I enjoy the look of the older style cars, and really when you think about it, the Caprice is pretty much extinct, so you can't go out and buy a Caprice anymore, especially where I am in the Northeast. With all the salt and everything, pretty much every Caprice that was on the road is dead. So like I said, keep that in mind. There are some people that buy these to look like cops. I'm not going to lie. I wouldn't have even had the Steelies with the center caps on there had it not been for I wouldn't have had the center caps on there had it not been for the original rims being rusty and also fairly bent up. So this car, some of you are probably wondering, only has 119,000 kilometers on it, which is extremely low mileage. Look at that bench sheet, folks. Like I said, a bit dirty, but you're never going to find a more comfortable car. Very enjoyable to drive. Actually very easy to park. This thing is a pretty tight turning radius for such a big car. It turns around a lot easier than a lot of small cars do, and even mid-sized cars. So when you think about that, that's pretty impressive. Really, the platform itself has been out since the 70s, I think it has been, and the last major update to the Ford Crown Victorias came in 2000. I had to put the window up because of the flies. And the last major update of the Crown Vics came in 2003/4 with all the extra frame fixes and whatnot, and suspension changes to update the cars to be a bit more modern and handle much better. And that they do. I've driven a 2000 once, and trust me, the 2003 Pluses handle way better. Mine, because it's a 2007, 2006 is this first year with this gauge cluster. The civilian models here just have the extra gauge in the middle there with the extra info. This has, so that has like your trip and everything on it. Cop cars have about the same thing, obviously. But like I said, guys, really there's not a whole lot to these cars. If I would suggest a year, obviously if you live in the Northeast, buy the newest possible, because odds are it's going to have the least amount of rust. However, if you live somewhere like California or somewhere without all the salt and shit, the years you really want to look for would be a 2004 or anything 06 and up. Common issues are a blend door actuator. If you have a police model, watch out for the transmission, obviously, and the odometers, and a lot of them like to start blowing out around the 100,000 mile to 125,000 mile mark, which would be about 160,000 Canadian kilometers. You do need to get that resoldered to properly function. So like I said, guys, really that's my suggestion for the Crown Vic. There's not a whole lot to them. They're a nice car to drive, very smooth. They definitely feel heavy. You can feel it in the wheel. And they like to float around a little bit depending on which model you have. So just wanted to update you guys a little bit and answer a couple of the common questions. And generally, you can find these sort of cheap, but I will warn you guys, the prices on the Crown Vics, depending on your location, has definitely gone up. I bought this Crown Vic a year and a half ago. Even then, they started to go up in price. So I paid a little bit of an extra price for this one, just because it only had 99,000 kilometers on it when I bought it. But even the police auctions, I noticed the prices have almost doubled within the last 2 years. So keep that in mind. If you want to go buy one as soon as you can. Don't wait or you will pay the price. Thank you all so much for watching and have a good one.